Today, back in the workshop, we have some tough decisions to make, and I'm hoping that you guys can help us make them. Now, here's the story. A customer who follows the channel sent us this bike in the post. This is pretty much how it came to us. I've removed all the brown paper and bits and pieces, and wants our expert opinion on whether he should invest in bringing it back to life, i.e. a full restoration, or it's time to give up. So we're going to go through piece by piece and then put a quote together and then throw it out to you. What would you upgrade, change, repair, replace? Let's get into it. So this is a Cannondale Scalpel. It's a fantastic race bike. I had one of these. In fact, I've had 3 of these and I snapped all of them. But anyway, I like them because they're one of those sort of British sports car type of bikes where if you like all the really fancy engineering and you're a mechanic and you like to fix things, you'd like the Scalpel. It rides really, really well, but it does, like a British sports car, need an awful lot of tender loving care because it is super fragile. It's a race bike, you know, you expect it to be. So what we have here, there's no pivots at the back. This is designed that the actual stays flex to allow this. And it does actually give you slightly different race feel when you're riding as well. I do quite like it. It makes it more of a snappier feel at the back. The rear brake is still mounted. And what I do like is there's no signs of corrosion on here yet. These normally suffer loads and loads of corrosion, and all the dropout areas look okay. The main pivot bolt is a bit of a concern because I can feel play in that. So we know that the bearings and possibly the pivot needs replacing as well because there is significant amounts of corrosion, and it looks like someone's already had a go at trying to undo that with a tool. So I'm a little bit nervous about actually removing those. Up here at this swing arm, there is significant amount of corrosion, and I can feel the play. Now that I've removed the shock, I can wobble that backwards and forwards. The actual carbon swing arm, which is normally a point of failure for these, actually looks really good and intact. The rest of the frame actually looks really, really nice. You know, the whole mounting point around here, little elements of corrosion here, but nothing that we can't fix. I think it would scrub up okay. The bottom bracket, even though good old Cannondale, they try and tell you it's BB30, it's not. It's actually a PF46. So this is the BB30 bearing pressed into like a metal cup and then pressed into the frame. Those bearings are shot. You can like feel them. The bearings have definitely had a pretty hard time. So on this, we are looking for probably at least 2 for 6 bearings and probably a new pivot kit as well. But the rest of it, I think, can all be just cleaned up and salvaged. When it comes to the fork, should I call it a prong? This is the Lefty Ocho. Really, really like this fork. However, it's really hard to make a recommendation for it because they didn't allow independent service centres to service it. They wouldn't sell us the parts. So you always had to send it off to CSG, which was the Cannondale importer in the UK. CSG famously went bankrupt, and now you're having to buy Cannondale directly from Europe. So obtaining parts for this and getting them serviced is virtually impossible now, which is a real shame. However, we do know of European distributors where we can buy the parts, and I do have all the tools to do it, but it is getting harder and harder. Now, this one has actually got a fair bit of corrosion where all the paint has come off. Now, this shouldn't be a problem. We can easily sand that back and touch that up just using a can of like auto body type paint. There's a little bit of corrosion down here. So it is repairable, that's for sure. Whether they want to or not is up to them. It is not working very well. There is virtually no rebound to it at all, and it is making some horrible squelching noises. So that is in desperate need of a service. The actual brake caliper, again, these all look good, which is surprising because there's quite a lot of corrosion and sort of rust around this bike, and you'd normally see on Shimano calipers loads of corrosion around here, but the calipers actually look in great condition. And it is quite surprising because the actual levers themselves haven't fared quite so well. Onto the rear shock then. This was one with a remote lockout style. There's a fair bit of corrosion on here that makes me worried, but there aren't any real obvious signs of scoring here on the actual shaft. One of the biggest problems is that this has just lost its spring. So this is going to need a little bit of work. Now, I haven't put this into the dyno yet to know whether it's been compromised, but one of my biggest fears is all the corrosion around here. If you don't know, this little white plastic is a little plastic ball bearing that's there as a security measure because the bit that's gone rusty is a little grub screw with a hole in it, and underneath there is a little rubber pellet. And what we do is we inject with a hypodermic needle nitrogen into this little air chamber here, about 300 to 400 psi, and it probably only fills like the last centimetre here. So this part of the shaft is high pressure nitrogen. that's injected through here. And then this part of the shaft is then oil under that compression. So when this starts to leak, you have a problem basically. You have lots of cavitation and all sorts. So the bushings definitely need a little bit of work. The air can probably can definitely do with it, but I'm definitely concerned about all that corrosion, because that seeps much further. You've got a fair bit of air behind there. So this rider has taken the headset bearings out for us. The lower headset bearing has definitely seen better days, and I can literally wobble that around in my hand. The upper one is okay, it just feels really, really rough. But these are relatively cheap, about 8 quid each most. It's the bottom ones, which are normally about 20 quid or so. So next up, I want to start looking at the drivetrain. So this comes fitted with the SRAM Eagle like electronics. So a pretty nice bike this. Now the first thing I want to do is give it a quick measure. Yeah, that absolutely swallows the 0.75% stretch. So already got a pretty good indication there's an awful lot of wear and tear on the drivetrain. Let's have a look at these chain rings. You can see just how worn these are. It's very unlikely that you'll get a new chain on there without suffering some severe chain suck. So luckily these use the standard 3 bolts, so we can actually put a variety of different chain rings on here. Depending on your budget, these get pretty expensive. When it comes to the non-drive side, now there is a fair bit of corrosion and wear on this. Really, really familiar with seeing this on SRAM cranks. Hasn't quite created a step, so we might get away with it, but it's not going to be a best fit. Now, these are a special Cannondale AI ones, so unfortunately we're not in a position where we can just go onto the internet and pick up a really cheap bargain set of these, because they only made Cannondale asymmetric integration ones on some of the more top-end carbon cranks. So I feel like this is probably going to be a fairly expensive and probably a long lead time to wait for them as well. But we'll have a shop around in a second. Dan, what have you got there? Are we playing one-upmanship?
Yeah, this has just come out of a giant that I've got in the stand, and you can see the bearing is shrapnel in the shell.
Is that from the bearing collapsing?
Yeah.
It looks like it's almost a cable on the inside, but that's just from the bearing collapsing.
There's shards of the inner race in the bottom bracket shell.
Yeah, that's toast.
Yeah.
Okay, other little points. Stem looks okay. Evidence of a little bit of surface corrosion. That's okay. Handlebars the same. There's a fair bit of sweat and corrosion underneath those. Hopefully that should just clean up okay. Okay, wheels. First of all, fine choice in tyres. I actually really like the Vittoria Barzo. Absolutely cracking cross-country tyre. It's really hard to tell without cleaning it how much wear and tear is on this cassette, but there's big evidence here. What I'm going to try and do is just run my finger across the leading edge, and I'm looking for bits where I can feel like the chain has been hitting it. So imagine the chain has been hitting this edge, and you get this little mushrooming effect. So these teeth are a little bit folded over metal. Feel it with a pick. Not on all of them. Seems to be in the middle gears it suffers the worst. Oh, those bearings feel and sound horrible. Feels like the tyres have got an insert in, and now I just want to have a look around. So all the spokes look intact, but they do feel quite loose. Whenever you see this much corrosion though, you've always got to be worried about whether you can take a nipple key on that and actually do something with it. Yeah, it might be worth having a little rebuild and putting some fresh nipples on there. Oh yeah, the front feels significantly tighter. And of course this is a Lefty, so the actual hub or the actual axle is actually on the fork. These hologram rims, I've seen quite a lot of them crack around the nipple holes, but actually this whole rim looks really good. Okay, so there are definitely some things that look cosmetically bad, but are probably okay underneath, and there's definitely some things that we want to sort out. My biggest areas concerned are those pivots and those bearings. That's actually going to be quite a job if that's all gone really rusty to get them out carefully. Fork is probably going to be the biggest area of expense. Yeah, let's start doing some adding up at the till. Okay, it's time to talk some prices on this. Now, first of all, the chainring on this, they do a normal version and a super light version. The normal version with a 3mm offset is just £43, absolutely straight swap, and we're going to keep with the current axle, I think, because we're going to be able to salvage that good enough. We also need a bottom bracket to go with that as well, which is about £55. And then we're into the fork. Now, after a bit of searching, we got excited. We thought we found one on Merlin at £499, but sadly they had sold out. I think what we should do with this, and what I've recommended to the customer, is replace it with a much more modern fork from either RockShox or Fox, because we can service them going forward. They normally have excellent spares, and most good shops will be able to service them. We definitely have the full facilities to service all of that here. And I did find a fantastic deal on a Fox 34 step cast factory with the remote lockout, so we can get the dual remote lockout working with this on 110mm boost, 51mm offset at fantastic price, just over 800 quid. So I think that was like, yes, bit of a score. Now to do that, we need to transfer that Lefty wheel onto a normal hub. So I found a 350 hub from DT Swiss that's going to match the DT Swiss hub on the back wheel. They're on sale right now. I found one at around 50 quid, so that's okay. Some spokes in there because the spoke lengths aren't going to be exactly the same. But they're nothing too special on there. They're just a good, robust, stiff spoke, about £1 each. And after that, we need to do some wheel bearings, or some frame bearings rather. So I think, looking at the amount of corrosion on this frame, I'm going to recommend that we at least go to a black oxide max capacity bearing and at least give some sort of corrosion resistance to this. It's only about £1 more per bearing, but I think that will make a massive difference. We've got the new headset bearings on there, uppers and lowers, and also the shock needs a bit of TLC, a little bit more than I imagined. So needs a normal air can service, but a full rebuild service kit on there as well, which is another £25. Biggest problem we found, that the second that we took a tool to this to undo the cable, is it just corroded. There's so much corrosion on this little blue part here. Well, you can see on this, it just came out. Sadly, these bits can get quite expensive. Currently, the RRP on that is £74.95, but we are currently chasing down a few people at Fox to see if they've got one in their spares box that we can dip into, because it'd be a shame just to that one little part there that we think we need. In total, the bill is, I won't tell you the exact number, but it's well over £1,000. But the point of this video is, I really want your opinion. If it was your bike, what would you be willing to buy new and replace? What would you be willing to try and repair? Or would you at this point be looking for a new bike? Remember, the owner of this bike is particularly fond of this. They've got very fond memories of it and they want to keep it running. So there is a little bit of nostalgia to this equation. But over to you guys in the comments. I hope you really enjoyed this little insight into life in a bike shop and some of the decisions that we have to make and the communication that we have to make with our customers as well. This is not the full story. This is part 1, and hopefully I'll be able to report back with part 2. So make sure you subscribe and see how it all turns out. Cheers for watching.